Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. We're going to just give it another minute or so, and then we'll get started. Thanks for joining. All right. Looks like we've got a lot of folks have come in, and we're excited about today's presentation. Today's topic is Komprise and AWS, driving intelligent data management in healthcare and life sciences. And I'm really excited about our session, our speakers. We're going to, try to make this as interactive as possible. We're going to jump into a demonstration, and we're going to cover, where Komprise fits into all of this. We're going to talk about AWS, but let me first and foremost jump out of PowerPoint and introduce you to Anthony and Krishna.
Hi, everyone.
So why don't you real quickly introduce yourself? Krishna, you want to go first? And then we'll talk about the topic, and then we'll jump right in.
Yeah, we're very excited to do this session today with Anthony from AWS. We're going to talk about some of the challenges we are seeing customers face, particularly in life sciences. And I think we're going to make this really interactive, right, Anthony? We're going to show a live demo, and we welcome any and all questions throughout the session.
Yes, yeah, and thank you, Krishna. We'll definitely make it as interactive and conversational. Good, should be a good talk. So hello, everyone. I'm Anthony Fiore. Excited to be with you today. With AWS, been here for the last 3 years. I'm a storage partner solutions architect. Been working with Komprise for easily the last year and a half, and been really loving the journey and seeing all of the great things that they do for our mutual customers. So really excited to chat with you all today.
Fantastic. So what we want to do is encourage you to I'll use the chat panels. We're going to come back and have a live Q&A towards the end of the session as well. But let's jump right into the problem that we want to talk about here, which is really what we're hearing from our customers at Komprise. So Krishna, why don't you kind of talk through this whole unstructured data management challenge that we're facing?
Yeah, I mean, we see this in our personal lives as well, right? I mean, look at all the photos you keep taking on your phone, and you probably also have data sitting on your computers, and your kids have data on their phones and computers. We are in a data explosion mode, and businesses are no different. Data is growing really fast. A lot of it is unstructured data, and a lot of companies are looking at the cloud and trying to figure out how to leverage the cloud to address their issues. And today, what Anthony and us, what we're going to focus on is how do you take your core enterprise workloads to the cloud? Because I think we're in the second phase of cloud adoption. First phase, a lot of companies created new applications in the cloud. They built cloud-native applications with DevOps and teams like that. And now the core enterprise IT teams are trying to figure out how do you take the bread and butter file-based applications and move them to the cloud. And that's a very interesting question, and there are multiple approaches to it. And we're going to talk about this journey in life sciences and what some of our customers are doing today. Anthony, I don't know if you have any perspectives on this overall journey that you want to add.
Yeah, I mean, we see it. We see quite a lot here, right? With like you said, Krishna, with customers who when they feel that cloud migration means, hey, I've got to be almost cloud native, and yeah, that works. That works for some customers, but for others, especially these larger enterprise customers, it becomes really tough to refactor some of these applications. We find that there's definitely a lot of siloing in effect. There's some of these more homegrown applications that are just really tough, and it's quite a bit of effort to really help to start making use of if there's if there's a true corporate objective to either move to the cloud or save on costs, it becomes really tough and quite a lot of effort to refactor these applications. So it's great that there's a tool like Komprise that's out there that kind of lets customers have their cake and eat it too when it comes to integrating a cloud strategy with their organization without having to do a true refactor when it comes to NAS file storage for their applications.
Yeah, and let's talk about that. So, actually, if we want to walk into some of the problems that we see, particularly in life sciences, we're going to give the example of a couple of our customers and what challenges they faced. As most of you probably know, in life sciences, data is everything. If you're a pharmaceutical company, and many of our customers are at the forefront of COVID and COVID research and areas like that. They're building the drugs that we are all benefiting from today, and that takes a lot of research. So they find themselves generating terabytes of data every single day, and so their data footprint is ever increasing. And they really don't want to delete data because this data has a lot of value. So a lot of life sciences companies are moving to a cloud-first strategy. And what they mean by cloud-first is any new capacity that they add, they're not going to add it in their data center anymore. They're going to add it in the cloud first. Why are they doing that? Because, data center space is limited and it is expensive to manage. And so when they start moving these core enterprise workloads to the cloud, a lot of these workloads were not written as object applications. They're file-based. So they're running on traditional network-attached storage like NetApp or EMC or Windows file servers. So how do you take those applications that are file-based and how do you move them to the cloud without disrupting what the researchers are doing, without breaking all the applications that are running on them? That's really what we're going to focus on today. And we're going to show you how you can take this valuable data and, kind of right-size it, because we all know that all data is not equal. Some data is very active and hot and being used a lot and needs high performance, but a lot of the data in these environments is cold. Maybe the researchers have finished their initial analysis. Data is still very valuable, but they're not looking at it every day. Just like on our phone, we're not looking at every photo every single day, right? So what do you do with all that cold data? And how can you move your core enterprise applications into AWS without breaking what users are doing today? So that's what we're going to focus on. Of course, you can always do a lift and shift if you want, but there is an easy button for starting to use AWS on all your core workloads without your users even noticing any difference. And we're going to talk about how you can do that and how a few of our pretty large pharmaceutical customers have done that with AWS and us. Anthony, do you have any stories you'd like to add on what you've heard from customers?
Yeah, I guess one of the nice things one of the things that I talked to one particular customer about in the healthcare space is about, okay, well, my data is cold today, right? But next week it might, right? It might not be, right? It's relative. So they need it. They also need a solution that can kind of help grow with them as there's peaks and valleys in demand, right? Because that temperature of the data is very relative, especially when you look at things like research and whatnot. So and that's where I think Komprise really fills that niche as well, because it's not just taking that point in time and saying, okay, well, everything as of today, if it's hot, we'll tear it down to we'll take it and we'll move it to cold storage. But over time, there's some we can maybe get to this in the demo, Krishna, talk about how that can be if there's a lot of activity on some of these data, how that can be moved back to hot as well. If they want to, if there's a need for it and they want to be able to use that in in AWS. Now that the data is in AWS, the great thing about, another nice thing about Komprise that customers love is the fact that it moves files or archives files in native format, right? So maybe you don't need to take that on-prem, right? Maybe you want to be able to look at that in AWS using some analytics tools, or just using an EC2 instance. So we'll talk about a little bit about that later. But these are some things now that really help customers unlock the value of the data, and it's not just a one-way sort of a street. So
yeah, no, that's very important, and we're definitely seeing that, right? Because the cloud is not just a cheap storage destination. It's really like a supercomputer at your fingertips. So how can you really leverage the compute power of AWS on all the data that's moved there? And that's why we keep everything, natively accessible as objects on AWS. And you don't even need Komprise to do that. You can use any S3 browser and just get to all your data in the cloud that we moved. And so there's no lock-in to your storage vendor or to us because it's the customer's data. So yeah, I think that's a great point.
You made a good point on this, the overall challenge, or even thinking of data management. So before we jump into the demo, I just wanted to talk about that and get your take on that. There's this quote from Gartner: IT industry doesn't have a storage problem, it has a data management problem. And so what I've been kind of curious about is, why haven't we seen a shift to data management sooner? And I'm just going to click through these. So what we've heard from customers: of this list of things we believe organizations need to sort of stop doing to become more sort of focused on the data management needs, what are you both seeing as the ones that are most, the biggest barriers, ones that are really preventing organizations from moving towards more of a data centric approach to storage versus just traditional approaches to storage and backup?
Anthony, it would be good to get your perspective, but I think it's really just lack of awareness is what we see a lot. A lot of times customers tell us, well, we didn't know that a solution like this existed. So you're used to buying storage, you're used to running out of capacity and buying more storage, you're used to backing up everything, and that's just what enterprises are used to doing. And now they're finding themselves in a position where that's not working anymore because it's just way too expensive. The backups are taking way too long. The data is growing so fast and storage budgets are staying flat, so the two ends are not meeting. And so now they're trying to figure out how to squeeze it all in. And the only way to break that cycle is to start with some analytics, to understand the data, to know and plan and say, I don't need to back up everything on my most expensive backup solution because 80% of the data hasn't even changed. So I can use a durable solution like AWS S3 for that data. It's changing the mindset to say, no, buying more capacity is not the answer. There is a better solution out there. Anthony, I don't know how you feel about that.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I mean, having been on the customer side for most of my career, I'm well aware of some of those refresh cycles and just the whole just the process of budgeting and buying more storage, and it's a lot, right? Because you've got to think about the overhead, you've got to try and factor in growth for projects that haven't even been considered yet. And it may have worked 10 years ago. It doesn't work now as companies try and just customers of really all shape and sizes are trying to go out there and trying to optimize their spend and really keep a tight lid on expenses and even capital purchases, right? They want to make sure that they're doing it in a most efficient way possible. So the first step is really just understanding. I agree with Gartner here, where you really want to make sure you're understanding what you're buying, right? So if you just keep throwing money at storage on-prem, and you may not need and none of it's really been accessed in over 6 months, for example, right? And you still need to keep it around for compliance purposes or whatever. This comprises a really attractive option for kind of being able to give customers insight into those into the data and being able to make business decisions with the tool based on that.
Fantastic. So I think, Christian, we should probably, talk about the goal of what we want to get to, and then jump right into what it looks like with Komprise. I feel like the sooner you can get to showing what this actually can do, the better. But let's talk about kind of where we want to get to. And I think for both of you, these are some of the goals that you probably talk to customers about early on in their journey.
Yeah, I can tell you that usually customers are looking to do a few things. They're absolutely trying to save costs as data growth is exploding and budgets are tight. Cost is definitely front and center. So they're trying to figure out a cloud strategy that would help them cut costs. And so we can easily show them a 70% or more reduction. In fact, one of our customers that we have with AWS, a pharmaceutical company, within 90 days, they were able to recoup their costs by offloading cold data into AWS. The cost of AWS and Komprise, they were able to recoup it within 90 days of deployment because, they didn't have to store that data on a flash NAS anymore. They didn't have to back it up anymore with their original backup solution, and they didn't have to do DR the way they were doing it. So cost savings is definitely very important, and we'll talk about how to enable that. But it's also, getting to the cloud faster. It's faster migrations to the cloud. Some data, you may want to move your NAS data into the cloud. You may want to use EFS and FSX to run a file application, and how do you get data there faster? So we'll show you how to do that as well. A lot of this is not cost savings alone. Ultimately, you are also making the processes faster, because if your backup application doesn't have to go through petabytes of data to find what changed and back it up, and if they're able to just work on 20% of the footprint as opposed to 100% of the footprint, the backup is going to run faster as well. So there's a cost and an efficiency reason to start this journey. And the larger reason is unlocking all that data value. So we'll show you how you can build virtual data lakes on AWS, how you can leverage compute on AWS to actually use the data you put in there. So you're not just dumping data into the cloud, you're actually using the cloud to get value out of your data. Anthony, I don't know if there's anything you want to touch on.
I just want to say I love that stat in the middle there, the 27 under the 27x faster data migrations. I mean, the fact that they were able to basically have this pay for itself and then some within 90 days, to me is it's a super cool stat. And something I love. I just love to see because it's rare to see return on investment that impactful that quickly, right? So it just makes me smile. So,
Awesome. I mean, I think it's get to the cloud faster, but also get to the cloud smarter. So why don't we jump right into what that looks like with Komprise, Krishna, and kind of take us out of PowerPoint. Maybe a little setup first, but I'm going to hand it over to you to share your screen.
Yeah, so what I'm going to actually show you is a live demo. I'll show you how you can actually get started and just point Komprise at all your storage and start getting analytics on your data, and then how you can move data smarter, either by offloading cold data through transparent archiving, or if you want to migrate entire file shares or directories, how you can do the migration. And I'll touch on what Anthony mentioned before, how can you just use the data in the cloud itself, and how can you make it transparent to your users? So we'll actually show all this in a live demo. And as we go through the demo, if you have questions, just feel free to keep putting the questions in the questions window because, we want to make this an interactive session. So I'm going to just share my screen now. And what I'm showing you here is the Komprise console. So let's say you want to get set up with Komprise. What would happen is we would create this console that we call a director. It's running in the cloud. And you come in here, and the first thing you would do is point Komprise at all the storage that you want to look at. In this example, I'm pointed at different NAS storage in my data center. So I'm going to point Komprise at my NetApp filers, Windows servers, Isilons, even some HPC servers. It doesn't matter what kind of data you have. As long as you can access the data via NFS or SMB or S3, it could be from any vendor storage, you can point Komprise at that data. I'm showing you all the NFS and SMB sources here, and I'll show you what happens with object data in a second. So once you point Komprise at all your data, it gives you analytics on the data. And within 15 minutes of getting this set up, even on petabytes of data, you will start seeing analytics. The first thing it shows you is how much data you have. So you see that in this environment, we have a little over 2 petabytes of data, and you can see a heat map. So the blue colors are all the cold data. You can see that a lot of the data in this environment is actually cold, and some of this data has been more recently used. And this is very typical. In most customers, we see that on average, about 76% of their data has not been touched in a year or more. Life sciences customers are particularly interesting because not only do they have a lot of cold data, they have exponential data growth. So the compounded effect of it is much greater. So that's the second thing you can see here. You can see how fast data is growing. And if you did nothing, it's showing you that this 2 petabytes is going to become almost 3.7 petabytes based on the historical growth rates. So it's actually showing you, it's projecting for you how the growth is going to be in the future. But in addition to that, you can get more detailed analysis because a lot of times IT doesn't know how users are using the data. So it's very helpful to see what kinds of data you have. You know, is it big files or small files? Which users are actually active? You know, what are they doing? Where is the data sitting, etc. So you get all this kind of analysis that helps you understand the environment. But not only that, I think you can see there's some cost savings numbers here. And these cost savings are dynamically calculated based on policies that you can adjust on the left-hand side. So here, I can interactively build a plan. So I could create my own cloud strategy. And as I edit my strategy, I will see how much I'm going to save. So the way I do that is I can go in and say, well, okay, you know, maybe in all my remote offices, anything over a year old, I want to move it to a bucket on AWS. You know, so I can change that policy and watch what happens to all these cost savings. I don't know if you saw, but when I did that, it went to $9 million here on savings. So you can interactively edit the plan. You could say whether you want to archive cold data or you want to copy data into the cloud, or if it's really old, if you even want to delete the data and confine it to a hidden location. So you can set different policies, and as you do it, Komprise shows you what the benefits are. And of course, you could say, well, you know, this looks too high. You know, I don't think I can really save 9 million. I'm going to change these numbers to fit my cost model. And so you can actually enter in what your costs are, and based on that, it will adjust, you know, what the savings are. And the whole idea here is that you can interactively understand what your users are doing with data, how data is growing in your organization, how aggressive or not you want to be with your data management, and plan ahead of time on how much you can save before you even start moving any data. So this analysis we find is very valuable for customers because a lot of times, even though IT intuitively knows that there's a lot of cold data in an organization, that they could be managing data better, they don't really know what users are doing with the data. And this insight is useful. Anthony, I don't know if you have any comments on this or anything you want to add before I go further into the demo.
Nothing really here. I've got a couple things, maybe more towards the deeper in the demo, just so I'm not stealing thunder. So.
Okay. All right. So once you're done, setting your policies, all you have to do is activate the plan, and then Komprise will actually move the data based on your policies. And when it moves data, if it archives cold data, basically it's taking cold files that haven't been touched in over a year, and it's moving them to wherever you want it. Here it's a bucket on AWS, S3. This could be S3, it could be S3IA, it could be Glacier. When it moves the data in there, the interesting thing is that the file looks like it is still on the storage. And let me show you what that looks like. So here's a folder, and you can see I have different files here. And I don't know if you're able to see in the demo screen, but some of these files have a little arrow in them. So it's showing me that the file looks like it's here, but it's actually not a local file. It's a link. But other than that, I don't really see any difference. I, as a user, go into my folder exactly as I used to, and I open a file. And here, I'm actually opening a file from S3. But I don't know that. I just double-clicked on this PDF. The PDF opened, and this file actually is sitting as an object in the cloud, and it got translated back as a file when I opened it. But to me, as a user, I don't care. I didn't know that, and I don't have to. Nor does my application. So any file-based application will continue to run exactly as before, even though this file is now sitting in the cloud. And so that's what we mean by you don't have to lift and shift. You can gracefully actually start offloading cold data, which is usually 75% of your data, into AWS without your users even noticing anything different. There's, of course, a little bit more latency when you open that versus a local file the first time you open it. But other than that, there's really no change. And that makes it easy to start taking core enterprise applications and moving them into AWS.
I think Krishna, I think another
Yeah.
key thing for our viewers today is that the whole Komprise process, when we're doing the transparent migration or archivals, right? Komprise sits outside the data path, right? So it's not adding latency. It's not adding. It's not going to cause. You mentioned there is latency, by when you're opening a file. That's a file that has been archived into S3, for example, right? You're adding a small amount of latency, but overall, when customers are, when this initial kind of move happens, it's outside the data path. It's not impactful to the actual NAS system or the applications itself. So it's very much almost like a background process running low priority. So it's not going to cause your NAS systems to overheat, so to speak, from a performance perspective.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Anthony. That's absolutely right. So we're sitting outside the data path, and 80% plus of the access, in fact 99% usually, is for the hot data, and Komprise is nowhere in that path. So your NAS is servicing all those requests, and behind the scenes we're moving the cold data, and only in the rare situation that the cold data is accessed are we translating that back into a file. And the other thing I wanted to show you is that file that we moved to the cloud actually is sitting as a native object in Amazon. So here I'm showing you an S3 browser view of a folder, and you can see this is in Amazon. A PDF file just shows up in that directory, and it's an object, and you can open it using any S3 browser in the cloud. So what this means is that if you wanted to run some compliance application in the cloud because you need to do some discovery on the data, or you want to kind of take some of this data, some researcher in another site wants to look at this data, do some analysis in the cloud, they don't have to bring this data back to an on-premise environment to run that analysis. It's natively available in Amazon. You can just go and use it directly in the cloud because we didn't lock the data in. We didn't just move blocks of data. You don't need Komprise even to get this access. You can just use any S3 tool to access the data.
So, Krishna, this is often a surprise. People don't realize because they're not used to this model. One question that we had that came in was, what happens if I stop using Komprise?
Yeah, if you stop using Komprise, you still, all your data is in the cloud and you can go directly access it. You still have, whatever got moved so far will continue to be there. It's just that nothing new will get analyzed or moved. That's it. But all the data is in your own storage in different places, fully in your control.
And so this no disruption to users is something that, back to what's preventing folks from maybe thinking about data management, is that sort of data hoarding and, hey, just don't touch my data, it's going to slow me down. But what I'm hearing, what you're showing, and what Anthony, I think, articulated as well, is because we're not in the hot data path, that is not an issue. It's something but it is a perception that is out there for other tools or in this market.
Yeah, a lot of times, if you put a product that puts an agent on storage, or a native tiering solution inside, storage vendors sometimes also do some tiering, and basically what they do is their file system takes some blocks of data and moves those blocks to the cloud. But then you can't actually go into the cloud and open the file because it's just some blocks. You have to use their storage operating system to open the data because the metadata stays with the storage. Those methods create lock-in and create a proprietary interface, because then you have to run that vendor's storage in the cloud to even get to your data, and you have to rehydrate data quite often. So there's it's more cumbersome for customers, and ultimately it's the customer's data, and we believe they should be in control of the data, not us or any other vendor. So our approach is completely standards-based, and we don't create any lock-in.
And just to dovetail on that, another question I get asked a lot by customers who are learning about Komprise for the first time is who owns the S3 bucket, right? And the easy answer is this is all customer S3 buckets. So when migrations or transparent archiving is going on, all of this is happening in your customer in a customer S3 bucket. So there's this data isn't actually going to Komprise. Komprise never actually isn't hosting the S3 buckets on customers' behalf. They maintain full control of the data at all times.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, all the data that we're moving to the cloud retains all the metadata as well. And so you can actually build virtual data lakes across all your storage, across AWS, as well as your on-prem storage. So for example, here I could search and try to find all data tagged as Project X, and Komprise shows me that even though I have over 2 petabytes in this overall environment, 266 terabytes are tagged as Project X. And you can see that if I look at the actual files in here, these files are sitting in different shares, and some of the data could be in the cloud, and it doesn't matter. It kind of gives me a single view of data across all my clouds and on-premise NAS, and I can search and find what I need across all of them. And so this is why you can actually use the data on AWS directly, and you can actually build data lakes on it and pull the data that you want out and export it into an Amazon Spark application or a Hadoop application or any data processing you want to do in the cloud. So I wanted to also very quickly just show you that the data in the cloud, all the analysis that I showed you, you can also run on objects. So if you did have an object store on premise and you want to move some of the object store data into AWS, or if you want to look at the data you have that's on AWS and you want to understand its costs and you want to use ILM on the data in the cloud, and you want to have a simple way to kind of manage that. We do provide the same capability that we do for files also on your S3 data and any object data. So just wanted to show you that. So it's a single way to manage all your unstructured data, which is file and object data. So with that, I'm actually, I think, going to switch back. We can go back to the slides, Darren. I'm going to stop sharing this. If you...
Yeah, that's great. That was a great overview. So I think, don't go away because we want to come back to some questions. But I think it'd be helpful to give us the AWS, context here, Anthony. Talk about, AWS in healthcare and life sciences, and just your overall approach to unstructured data management and storage.
Absolutely. So really, what we're hearing a lot from folks in the healthcare life sciences space is that they're just under tremendous pressure to basically transform every aspect of what they're doing. Right? They need to be able to innovate faster. They need to be able to streamline and optimize wherever possible. And AWS really helps them in many, if not all, those areas, from things like manufacturing and supply chain to especially the research and development, the R&D space, as well as even post-market surveillance and patient support. We're basically with them every step of the way, helping them kind of transform their businesses. And Krishna mentioned it before. Data center space isn't just expensive; it's time-consuming, right? We want to be able to help. A key mission statement of AWS is to really help customers think less about running data centers and that undifferentiated heavy lifting, we like to call it, and really focus on their business and be able to transform and reinvent their businesses. And the HELS space is no different, right? If anything, the challenges are bigger, and the implications are bigger. I mean, we look now with especially with COVID. I mean, there's definitely a lot of focus on the healthcare space, and everybody's got to be able to move faster and innovate quicker. So Amazon definitely helps. We help healthcare and life sciences customers of all different shapes and sizes out with these sorts of things. So I want to talk a bit about security. So security at AWS, we call it Job Zero. So it is basically the cornerstone. I mean, nothing of everything we do. So if it's not secure, we really don't want to put it out there. So, but a really nice feature at AWS is that we right now have over 50 global compliance certifications and accreditations. We've got over 100 of our services are HIPAA eligible, and we've also got that for high trust. And we also know that GDPR is a very big concern in the industry as well. So we're committed to offering services and resources for our customers to help them comply with GDPR, so that they can apply these to their activities and best practices. So a key thing that customers love about AWS, regardless of industry, is our global reach. So we currently have 24 regions throughout the globe, a local region, and 77 availability zones, and over 220 points of presence for our CloudFront service. And what that means for our customers is that they can deploy regionally within minutes. Or deploy globally in minutes. So if you do have a need to be in a certain region or be in a certain country, you don't need to worry about figuring out where you're going to get data center space from, if you're going to need to go with a colo provider or build a data center of your own, or figure out how to expand different data centers. Now you can just you basically use one of our existing regions, and we're not done with 24. We've got 6 regions that are in the pipeline throughout the globe. Spain, Switzerland, Melbourne are all on the roadmap, coming in the fullness of time. And we're not done there. We continuously will be adding regions as where customers want us to add them. So a big part of AWS is being customer focused and being customer obsessed and working backwards from those requirements. So also wanted so my last slide here for me is really to talk about why Amazon S3 is the best place to store your data. So we talk about migration or transparent archival. Amazon S3, we've got exabytes of storage out there, right? Trillions of objects. We've got numerous data lakes that have been built on S3, and we provide customers with the control that they want and need to be able to provide granular access to their data, making sure that only the people within their organization who require access to that have access through granular least privileged models. We've got unmatched durability, scalability. We've got 11 nines is the percentage of durability that we have out there. So for our Amazon S3 storage classes, and it really means a lot to customers because what that means, 11 nines, is that we're basically replicating your data for all of our storage classes, with the exception of Amazon S3 and Frequent Access One Zone. We're replicating that data across 3 availability zones. So in the event of an issue in one of the availability zones, you're still going to have access to your data because that's in 2 other availability zones, and that's a lot more of a redundant posture than a lot of our customers have today, and it's there by default, right? There's nothing special they need to do to stay available and redundant within the region. And I also want to talk about the security. So we have numerous security tools from GuardDuty, Macy, block public access to be sure that no one can publicly access your objects or buckets. And we continue to innovate here to make sure our customers have all the tools necessary to really make sure that their data is secure, both from an encryption in transit and encryption at rest perspective, just to compliance controls and being able to understand who has access to the data. We want to make sure that customers have a wide range of different tools available to them with this data. And actually, I do want to talk last about the native integration with a lot of our services. So we look at some of our AI and machine learning services, analytics services, right? So if you've got a bunch of CSV files that you're going to be using, they're going to be archiving with Komprise right into S3, you can now use that as the foundation for a data lake. Build Athena tables on top of it, and start running Athena queries on top of your cold data. I mean, this really starts opening up possibilities that customers really never thought of before, right? Being able to use these analytics tools, start applying machine learning and artificial intelligence to some of this data that was traditionally cold, right? They can now do this, and Komprise really helps customers enable that for them. So with that, I'll hand it back to you, Darren.
Yeah, I love that point you made, and we're just kind of coming into the home stretch here, but I love that point about, look, it's important to find ways to reduce costs and kind of optimize your current environment, but ultimately, how do you get more value from your data? And that's where I think you're pointing to, and that's definitely where we want to work with our customers to get to. So I think, there are some good questions I want to also come back to, but Krishna, maybe just talk about this ultimate set of goals around buying the storage you need, being agile, and avoiding lock-in. Like how do we think about that at Komprise?
Yeah, so I mean, hopefully you saw this through the presentation and the demo that really what we're trying to do is we don't have a storage or a backup agenda. We're saying we'll come to your data wherever your data sits. We'll show you what you have. We'll help you move the right data to the right place at the right time, but we'll do it in a way without getting in front of your data. So it's really a non-intrusive way to manage your data, and this is the only way to manage data at scale. The scale at which data is growing, you want to be flexible. You want to future-proof your data, and so we believe that a no lock-in approach that manages data on the side without getting in front of data is what you need to evolve, and that's what we're providing. And if you want to see it for yourself, you can actually sign up and get an analysis done on your data, so you can see how this works in your own environment.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll point that link up as well. Also wanted to just really quickly cover the partnership with AWS. It's a great partnership, and just having Anthony here, speaking to the value proposition is powerful. Are there areas here that either of you would want to focus on, or any specific use cases, or just kind of a general summary of the partnership, Krishna?
Yeah, in fact, I think one of the questions that I saw coming up was, can compressed target data be stored on immutable storage? That might be worth bringing up. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can put data into a bucket that you've indicated as a worm bucket. Also on AWS, on the buckets, if you have versioning enabled, Komprise supports that as well. So not only do you have a broad set of storage classes on AWS that we work with, and we also leverage the ILM capabilities in Amazon, but you also have features like how much durability do you want? Anthony mentioned that, as well as, do you want versioning on your data? Do you want immutable data? And, Amazon provides you a lot of these choices, and we do support those choices for you.
Great. So let's I do want to come out of slides for a second and just come back to a discussion, so we can see everybody. And thanks for going through the presentation. But I think want to open it up for a conversation and just general questions that are coming in. And and one of them I think that strikes me as we go through this is, for you, Anthony, like, where are most organizations you're working with today? Every organization has sort of that maturity curve. Are you feeling like we're just at the start of this journey, or does it depend on industry? Maybe specifically in healthcare and health and life sciences. When do you come into an organization and kind of help them think through their overall strategy?
It's a great question, Darren. It's because the answer is the worst answer in the world. It depends, right? So because it really depends. I mean, what we see generally with some of the smaller, more agile customers, even in the healthcare space, right? So they're able to be a lot more agile, right? So they're going to be kind of a lot quicker to have that cloud first or cloud native sort of a piece. So of the kind of piece of the puzzle, so to speak. Where we start seeing a lot of traction with Komprise, and where we really see a lot of interest there is more around those customers who they're either greenfield, they're either they've never thought about cloud before, right? Or they've never thought about cloud before, and they want to get started to use it to really start making use of pay-as-you-go pricing and some of the durability and some of the features that we provide with Amazon S3, for example. But they just don't know how to get there, right? They don't want to refactor these applications. There's still two folks that might be administering that application, and it's unsupported by the vendor to go into AWS or something like that, right? So that's where I start seeing these conversations start to blossom, right? From a technology perspective. And then there's the flip side of that, which is the business driver, right? So so one of the customers I work with, and Krishna's worked with, one of our pharmaceutical mutual customers, really just had a business driver, right? Hey, help me save costs, right? I need an easy button. I need an easy way to help save costs, because I'm under a mandate, right? So this is an easy way to save costs, but it's so much more than just doing that, right? That's kind of the first discussion. Okay, we can help you save costs. We can also help you do all these other great things in terms of being able to help you to migrate some of your storage, but also be able to have that analytics, right? I tell customers who look at Komprise all the time, don't just look at Komprise as another migration or an archival tool, right? Because you're kind of missing the other half of the story. It's those analytics, right? I mean, it's just the knowledge of what's being put out there. I mean, you may have files that are out there from years ago that have been generated from people who are no longer with the company, right? So being able to understand that, maybe you don't want to migrate that at all. You just want to delete it, right? Being able to have that, and the fact that Komprise can kind of grow with you as you go from that that hybrid strategy, right, where you're kind of putting your toe in the cloud and starting to archive some of these files into S3, And then as customers get more mature and kind of go around through that adoption curve, now they can use the cloud data management suite that Krishna was talking about earlier to really help customers understand, what do things look like now in S3, right? How am I using my object store? How am I using my EFS and NFS and my FSX shares, right? Because the rules still apply there, right? Because you still want to make sure that everything there is relevant and it's cost optimized, and you just have some insight into what's being used there. So it's a really great tool, and it's probably a very long-winded answer to your question.
Well, you covered a lot of ground, and actually it's a good segue into one of the questions that came in that kind of speaks to the analytics, which is, I'll address to you, Krishna. Is there a capability to include additional custom tags other than timestamp for lifecycle management?
Absolutely. Yeah, you can put in, so you can look at data by any combination of standard metadata as well as custom tags. In fact, one of the customers that Anthony was talking about, this pharmaceutical company, is doing exactly that. They have their researchers tagging data, and then when we move the data to AWS, all the tags are fully preserved. And using the deep analytics that I showed you, you can actually search on those tags in the cloud. So the tags move and are available on the data as it moves around. And you can absolutely use custom tags.
Great. All right. Well, we're kind of towards the end. I want to just come back to, you mentioned, Krishna, a way to get started. So I'm just going to pop that up here. You can learn about Komprise and AWS on our website, but I think the best thing to do is just come in and get going either with a customized demo for your environment or get going with our free trial, because we do want you to see what's possible. One of the quotes that that really stuck with me, Anthony, is when you said, a lot of your customers ask you, why didn't I know about this sooner? Yep. How do you, when they say that, where do you tell them to go? What do you tell them to do first?
So the first thing I do is so once they know about it, I definitely make sure that they get a demo so they can get a full understanding of this, right? And then talk to Komprise and schedule an assessment, right? And just to start looking through some of the art of the possible, as we like to say, right? Mm-hmm. So.
Makes sense. Great. Well, Krishna, any final thoughts for you? If I'm someone who's listening to this for the first time, what's your guidance? What's your advice? Softball question.
No, we appreciate all the questions. I know we're kind of out of time. So, and Anthony, as always, thank you so much. Thanks for being on this call, and thanks for all the interactions. And I know we didn't get to some of the questions, but we'll follow up later.
Yeah, we'll follow up, and I definitely want to thank you, Anthony, for joining. It's a great partnership. You guys are innovating, and we're doing everything we can to keep up with that innovation, and want to keep driving this partnership forward and driving customer success together. So, thanks everyone for joining. Thank you, Krishna, and we look forward to answering your questions and follow up. So, have a great day, and we'll speak soon.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Take care. Bye.